Have you ever stopped to think about why you use the hand you do? I mean, why are some people left-handed? It sounds like a simple question, but the answer, well, it dives deep into brain wiring, genetics, and even a surprising evolutionary twist. So let's get into it and uncover the science behind handedness.
So, just how many people are we talking about? Turns out, about 1 in every 10 people on Earth is a lefty. That might not sound like a lot, but it's a small and incredibly consistent minority that has popped up in every human culture for, get this, more than 1 million years.
Which leads to the big question. Why isn't it a 50-50 split? Is it all in our genes? Is it something that happens before we're even born? Or could there actually be a hidden advantage to being different? The wild thing is, the answer is kinda all of the above. So here's our game plan. We're gonna start with the brain's two sides. Then we'll look at the roles of genes and what happens in the womb. We'll also dive into the pretty shocking history of cultural bias against lefties. And finally, we'll check out the unique advantages that can come with being a southpaw. All right, first up, let's talk about the control center for this whole operation, the human brain, and its two very different halves. At its most basic, handedness is really just a sign of how your brain is organized. It's a perfect example of something called lateralization, which is just a fancy way of saying that different brain functions are handled by one hemisphere or the other. It's all about making our brains faster and more efficient. And the wiring is surprisingly simple. It's cross-wired. Your brain's left half controls the right side of your body, and the right half controls the left side. So for the 90% of you who are right-handed, your left brain is probably running the show for most motor skills. For lefties, it's the exact opposite. Now this is where it gets really fascinating. Look at how this wiring affects other things, like language. For almost all right-handers, speech is parked firmly in the left hemisphere. But for left-handers, it's all over the place. A big chunk use both sides of their brain, or even just the right. This tells us something huge. Being left-handed often means you have a more varied, maybe even a more integrated brain organization, which could be a ticket to more flexible thinking. So how does this unique brain wiring even happen? Well, it's not like a single switch gets flipped. It's more like a complex recipe, with ingredients from our genes, our time in the womb, and just plain old chance. You know, for the longest time, everyone was hunting for that single lefty gene. But it turns out that was a wild goose chase. Modern science has shown us that handedness is way more complicated than that. It's influenced by a whole cocktail of different factors. Scientists now think there are dozens of genes, maybe up to 40, that each give a little nudge toward one hand or the other. But that's not all. The environment in the womb is a huge piece of the puzzle. You can actually see fetuses favoring one thumb to suck. And finally, stress during or around the time of birth. Things like being born prematurely has a real statistical link to being left-handed, maybe because it tweaks the final stages of brain development. Okay, so if this is all just natural biology, why has being left-handed carried such a heavy stigma for so much of human history? Let's unpack the cultural bias that's literally built into our language. This quote just says it all, doesn't it? In English, dexterous means skilled, and it comes from the Latin word for right. You know what the Latin word for left is? Sinister. That connection between left and something evil or awkward is no accident. And this bias is everywhere. In French, the word for left is gauche, which we use in English to mean socially clumsy. In so many cultures, the right way is the correct way, and the left is, well, you get the idea. And this wasn't just about words. It had some pretty awful real-world consequences. Throughout history, left-handedness was tied to witchcraft and demons. In some societies, the left hand was considered unclean. And well into the 20th century, it was common for teachers to force left-handed kids to write with their right hand, sometimes by literally tying their left hand behind their back. Okay, but despite all that historical baggage, modern science is starting to reveal a fascinating flip side, that being a lefty might come with a unique set of advantages and associations. It's pretty interesting, right? Lefties seem to be overrepresented in fields that demand creativity and strong visual thinking, like art, architecture, and music. And they also seem to have an edge in one-on-one sports, like boxing or tennis, probably because their movements can catch a right-handed opponent completely off guard. So what's the deal? Well, it might all come back to the brain's physical structure. Some research suggests left-handers often have a bigger corpus callosum. That's the nerve fiber superhighway that connects the two halves of the brain. A bigger bridge could mean faster communication between the logical left side and the creative right side.
Now, to give you the full balanced picture, it's also important to mention that science has found some statistical links between left-handedness and certain neurodevelopmental conditions that, just like handedness, trace their origins back to early brain development. And I cannot stress this enough. This is a correlation, not a causation. Being left-handed does not cause these conditions. It simply suggests that the very complex web of factors that can lead to a left-handed brain might sometimes overlap with the pathways that influence these conditions. So when you put all these pieces together, the brain science, the genetics, the history, what's the big takeaway? Well, it's about reframing how we look at left-handedness entirely. Bottom line, being left-handed isn't a flaw or a defect. It is a normal, healthy, and stable part of the human spectrum. It's just one of the many different ways a brain can be wired for success. And its persistence over 1 million years? That might come down to a really cool idea from evolutionary game theory. Basically, in a world full of righties, being a lefty gives you the element of surprise in a fight or in competition. Being different isn't a weakness. Its rarity is its strength. Ultimately, left-handedness is just a beautiful reminder of our own diversity. It shows us there isn't just one right way for a brain to be put together. If you're a lefty, your brain literally experiences the world from a different angle, and that is something really special. Which leaves us all with a final thought to chew on. Whether you're right-handed or left-handed, how has this fundamental part of your brain's wiring shaped the way you see, create, and move through the world around you?